LBH is not so affectionately stands for losers back home. This term digital nomad has kind of turned into this like blanket term for any foreigner. Ooh, let's get spicy. If you're not living a better lifestyle, then what's the point of moving? And it gets to the point where everyone has their little clique and sticks to their little clique. And if you're not an incredibly extroverted person, then this can get exhausting eventually. They want to glamorize the life to the absolute extreme. If you're someone that calls somebody a loser back home, it's kind of true sometimes. You can't escape yourself, dude. Just go back to your country. No matter where you go, you're gonna be able to find a community that fits for you. So we just crossed the 1-year anniversary of being a digital nomad, me and my wife. By the way, this is new addition to the family. Like a lot of you guys, when I started on the digital nomad journey, I watched a ton of YouTube videos. I saw a ton of videos talking about all the pros and cons. They were mostly pros, and I believed all of them. But it's been a year now, and I'm realizing that a lot of the stuff, they weren't outright lies, but there was definitely a lot of exaggeration and a lot of sensationalization of what it's like to be a digital nomad. So I wanted to make this video just as a discussion to cut through all the BS, cut through all the exaggeration, and really talk about what life is like as a digital nomad and what you can expect. Number one thing I hear from everybody is that the cost of living for a digital nomad is so cheap. I'm living in Da Nang, Vietnam right now, and obviously the cost of living in Da Nang compared to Los Angeles, where I'm from, is a huge difference. It's like a third or a quarter of the price. But I do want to give a massive, massive asterisk to all the videos that you've ever seen about cost of living as a digital nomad and say they don't really factor in the entire cost of living. When they break down the spreadsheet, they have things like rent and food and just like the basic things. It's like 10 things. But if you've actually lived life for like more than 10 years after graduating college, so let's say you've graduated college at, what do you graduate college, like 22 or something, and then you're at least 30 years old, you know that there's always unexpected expenses. And unexpected expenses aren't a thing that just happen every few months. It's actually like every single month, there's always some miscellaneous expense. And that expense is something that we don't really think about on a day-to-day basis, but they always happen. Things like something breaks on your car, or in Vietnam, it'd be something breaks on your scooter. Maybe like something medical where you have to go to the hospital. It could be a million different things, but one thing I just learned about budgeting is that one-time expense, there's always a one-time expense. One thing I want you guys to remember about everything that you see online is that when influencers make videos, their goal is to get as many views as possible. And to get as many views as possible, you want to make it as fun as possible or as sensationalized as possible. So they want to glamorize the life to the absolute extreme, and they're going to tend to exaggerate things. I know this is like completely ironic because you guys are watching this video on YouTube and I make YouTube videos as well, and I'm talking about how YouTubers are exaggerating things, but it is what it is. So I will say that on average, it is significantly cheaper to live in Da Nang, but it's not as cheap as people make it out to be. First off, every budget you see online is like a shoestring college student level budget, which is fine. If you want to live that kind of lifestyle and you want to be able to save as much money as possible or live as cheaply as possible, that's perfectly fine. If you're already doing that in the US, and you're just going to translate that to Da Nang, Vietnam, or any of the popular digital nomad destinations like Thailand, Bali, whatever, then that's great. But what I've learned is that the vast majority of digital nomads don't live like that. Most digital nomads lived a pretty average, middle-of-the-road life in the US. Digital nomads, at the very least, want to live the same lifestyle that they live in the US. So if you lived a middle-class life in the US, then you want to live a middle-class life in Vietnam. What I found is the vast majority of digital nomads want to live a little bit of a better lifestyle. Because if you're not living a better lifestyle, then what's the point of moving all the way across the country to a place where you don't speak the language, you don't understand the culture? You want to get something out of it. So if you're living a middle-class lifestyle in the US, you want to live a upper middle-class lifestyle in Vietnam. If you're struggling in the US to make ends meet, you want to be comfortable in Thailand. If you're living paycheck to paycheck in the US, then you want to have financial security in somewhere like Bali. So these online shoestring budgets are not really realistic for most people, and I would say that you would be at least 50% higher than the budgets that they kind of give you. I think for the average digital nomad that I know in Vietnam, I think their budget is at least double what you see in those YouTube videos. Now, on top of that, being a digital nomad is not just about surviving. It's about having fun. It's about exploring. It's about opening yourself to new cultures and new experiences. So most digital nomads, they travel a lot. It's in the word, right? Digital nomad. The nomad part is you're traveling. So at the very least, people are doing a visa run every 3 months. That's kind of like my situation. Every 3 months, we'll go to a new city and just have fun for about a week. You have to buy plane tickets. It's cheap to go an hour away from Vietnam, but if we're going to Korea, that's a couple $100. If we're going to Japan, that's a couple $100. If we're going to Singapore, that's a couple $100. So these are things that people don't include as part of the budget. And these things do add up. And when you're there, you're spending money on a hotel. You're trying to have a cultural experience in a new city. So you're going to eat good food. You're going to buy tickets to stuff. You're going to spend some more money so that you can enjoy the experience. I personally think that if your only goal for being a digital nomad is to save money, then it's not that great of a lifestyle. Personally, for me, it's a lifestyle where I travel 10 times as often as I normally would. It's a lifestyle where I'm having 10 times as many experiences. I have conveniences like we have cleaners come, I have food delivered every day, and I'm still coming in under budget. So just keep that in mind if you're thinking about becoming a digital nomad. I think if you have any kind of US salary that you can maintain while being a digital nomad, then it's enough money to thrive. Not survive, but to thrive. But if you see these videos that are like, oh my gosh, it only costs like $500 to $1,000 a month to survive, and your goal is to just make $1,000 a month, and you have no savings in the bank, then I think you're not gonna have a good time. I've personally run into dozens of people that are living on a shoestring budget. They have no savings, and the first time they hit some sort of financial emergency, like a repair, they get into an accident, anything like that, they're struggling and they're trying to figure out what they're going to do. And being in a foreign country, it's a lot harder to figure out a source of income than if you were in your home country, which kind of transitions us to number two. Number two, the thing that I've heard from everyone, especially the ones that are selling courses on how to become a digital nomad, is that professional networking as a digital nomad is amazing. I've heard people say, you don't even need a plan. You don't even need to have a remote job. Just go. Just buy the plane ticket and go, and you'll figure it out. And you'll meet so many amazing people, and there's going to be people doing incredible things, and you'll figure it out. And this is really dangerous. One, that's the worst advice that you can ever give. It really is the worst. I am personally a big fan of jumping into the deep end. I'm a big fan of that whole cliche of building the railroad tracks while the train is still running. But in this situation, this is a bad idea. First of all, I wholeheartedly believe that professional networking as a digital nomad is significantly worse than if you were just in a major city like LA, San Francisco, New York City. Any major business hub in the US, you're gonna have one, a lot more opportunities to meet new people. And number two, you're gonna have a lot more people, just like a bigger pool of people to meet with. The digital nomad community is still pretty small. It gets to the point after a while where you're seeing the same people over and over again. I know some people are gonna watch this video and say, that's not true. I'm a digital nomad and I meet some amazing people that are doing amazing things, and I go to networking events and everybody's building a startup here and it's amazing. And I don't blame you for that, because I think when you're young and you have your first few networking events, you're in college, you go to your first conference or you go to your first networking event, and then you get a bunch of business cards and you're like, oh my gosh, like that was an amazing experience and I met all these people that are doing amazing things, but nothing ever really comes out of it. And it's kind of an oxymoron, because the digital nomad lifestyle is not really meant for people that are trying to reach the highest level of career that they possibly could. It's mostly for people that are trying to balance their work life with enjoyment, cultural experiences. Stop! She's chewing on my shirt. Now, I'm not gonna knock that lifestyle, because I met plenty of people here that are working 10 hours a week, 5 hours a week. Even if you're working up to 20 hours a week, to be able to live comfortably and to thrive and to have every experience that you want and to travel the world and meet new people and eat coconuts on the beach, I think most people would agree that that is a pretty awesome lifestyle. So even though I'm a workaholic, I don't knock on people that are looking for work-life balance. But when you're around people that are seeking work-life balance, personally, I don't think it's a place for professional advancement. Let me paint a picture for you guys. If you're in LA or in New York, when you meet someone new, the first thing that anybody asks is, what do you do? Because the US is a society where what you do, what your job is, matters so much to who you are in society, for better or for worse, that's the first thing that anybody ever asks. And they judge you like 80% of the way based off what you do. So if you say, oh, I work in finance, I work on Wall Street, I'm a software engineer, people's ears perk up. Again, I'm not saying this is a good thing or a bad thing. I would argue that in a lot of ways it's a bad thing, but that's just the way it is. As a digital nomad, I don't think I've ever been asked, what do you do, as a first question. I don't think it's ever come up in like the first 30 minutes of conversation. When you meet someone new, it's always, how long have you been here? Where are you from? What countries have you been to? How long have you been traveling? Do you play pickleball? Like seriously, these are the conversations. And to me, it's actually a little refreshing. It's a little refreshing that my identity is not defined by what I do for money, but it's more about what experiences I've had. But I'm going off on a bunch of tangents here, but coming back to the main point, I think that professional networking as a digital nomad is incredibly overrated. If you're looking for a remote job or you're looking for a job that can set you up for becoming a digital nomad, I think it's better to do it back in the US. Figure out your financial situation, figure out your income situation, and then you should become a digital nomad. And I think you'll have a much better experience then. Now, I do want to add to point number 2 here. I said that professional networking as a digital nomad is incredibly overrated. I do think, however, that making friends as a digital nomad is incredibly underrated. Seriously, if you think about your entire life, there's like two times in your entire life where it's easy to make friends. One is when you go to kindergarten or preschool, nobody knows anybody, nobody has friend groups, nobody's formed cliques yet, so everybody just walks up to everybody and they're like, "Hi, what's your name? Do you want to be my friend?" So that's one time. And then the second time, I think, is when you enter college. College is also a time when you kind of enter a new place. You have an opportunity to reinvent yourself. People don't have their friend groups and their cliques or anything like that yet. And it's an opportunity where you can just walk up to anybody randomly and say, "Hi, I'm David. What's your name? Where are you from?" Unfortunately, we live in a society where that's kind of weird to do anywhere outside of those two situations. Or at the very least, it's very hard to do unless you're a very extroverted person. However, if you become a digital nomad, you get a third opportunity to have this kind of environment. Again, it's a time where nobody really knows each other. Everyone is open and eager to meeting new people. Friend groups haven't really formed yet. And a fourth thing, I guess, is that everybody has this positive, optimistic outlook because they're in a new place and they're on a new adventure. And because of that, it's extremely, extremely easy to meet friends. And I think that everybody kind of has an open mind and an open heart, and they're open to meeting new people. You never really find people that are standoffish, especially being from LA. Everyone kind of has that like, "Oh, like, what do you do?" or "How many followers do you have on Instagram?" type of attitude to them. And everybody has kind of like a wall up. And it gets to the point where everyone has their little clique and sticks to their little clique. And if you're an outsider coming into that environment, it's very hard to kind of get your footing and find your friend group. Number 3, being a digital nomad can be very lonely. This one is true. It's something that I heard from a lot of people. Now, to get rid of 90% of that loneliness, there's one easy little trick, not so easy little trick you can do, and that's come with a significant other. Obviously, I'm here with Kim. We spend every waking moment together. We're very codependent. It's weird. I get it. For me, that's why I'm not lonely. Unfortunately, I do hear from a lot of people that loneliness is a very common recurring theme when it comes to becoming digital nomad. And it's for a lot of reasons, but I think mainly it's because every time you hop to a new city. Now, I said that every time you hop to a new city, it's an opportunity to meet new friends, but eventually it gets kind of exhausting. Every time you hop to a new city, it's a reset and it kind of feels like you have to go through all of this again. And if you're not an incredibly extroverted person, then this can get exhausting eventually. And not only are you hopping around a bunch, but the friends you're making are hopping around a bunch as well too. So let's say you're in Da Nang, Vietnam for 1 month and you meet some friends, and they're hopping to a different city. And when they're back, you're hopping to a different city. A lot of times it's hard to sync with people at the same time. So I'm gonna tie this in with another point. Let's call this point 3.5. And that's the myth that as a digital nomad, you're gonna be hopping around all the time. When you start out as a digital nomad, you might hop around a bunch. I know people that hop around every week, every 2 weeks, even once a month, I think is considered a lot. But what I found is primarily because of loneliness, I think people start to settle down. The digital nomad term is such a blanket term now, but I found that most digital nomads, if they've been doing this for a long time, they eventually find a home base. For example, we're here in Da Nang, Vietnam. This is our home base. From here, we've gone to Singapore, we've gone to Tokyo, we've gone to Korea, we've gone back to the US, but we're probably here like 10 months out of the year. So you could even argue that we're not actually digital nomads. We're people that live in Da Nang that go vacation 4 to 6 weeks out of the year. A lot of the friends that I have in Da Nang as well are also people that live here for more than 6 months out of the year. So loneliness is a thing that all digital nomads experience at some point, and I think what eventually happens is they slow down. And I think that's the way to combat loneliness. It also just combats fatigue and exhaustion. But once you establish a home base, you start meeting other people who have chosen Da Nang or Chiang Mai or Bali as their home base, and you see them for most of the time. Now, of course, once in a while we'll all travel and not be in the city at the same time, but for the most part, you start building a friend group, you start building a community. Number 4, ooh, let's get spicy. Number 4, digital nomads are LBHs / passport bros. LBHs, not so affectionately, stands for losers back home. There's a lot of talk online about digital nomads saying they are people that were losers back in the US. They couldn't make it. They were poor. They were unsuccessful. They didn't get no bitches. And that's why they went to a different country where the dollar is strong. Now they're rich. They use their money to get girls, and they're big fish swimming in a small pond. All right, let's jump into this. I'm gonna break this down into 2 parts. The first part is this is obviously not true at all. And the second part is it's kind of true sometimes. I'm trying to really think about it, but I actually don't think I've ever met a digital nomad that is the type of person to flaunt their wealth. Now again, I'm from LA. I go to New York City often. I go to Miami often. There are so many people that just flex their wealth, flaunt their wealth in the US. It's like part of the culture. But I don't think I know anybody that was middle class or upper middle class in the US that came to a place like Vietnam or and Thailand and acted like they were a big baller. It's just not really part of the digital nomad culture. The vast majority of digital nomads are hippies that do yoga on the beach, say namaste, go to sound baths, go to ice baths, and eat quinoa bowls and avocado toast. Not judging, by the way, because I do a lot of that stuff too. But my point is the vast majority of digital nomads are people that don't like that lifestyle. They never were part of that lifestyle. And that lifestyle in the US or in major cities around the world was really toxic to them. And now that they're in a place where money is almost not a factor in their day-to-day lives, they can kind of find this more balanced and peaceful lifestyle. And some of you guys might judge and say, if you're making minimum wage or you're barely getting by in the US, then you're a loser. And you are an LBH because now that you're in Vietnam or now that you're in Thailand, you're no longer a loser because you're making a lot of money. Now, I'm gonna be a little bit mean here because I'm not a fan of bullying, but I'm a fan of bullying bullies. And I think if you're someone that calls somebody a loser back home on the internet for being a digital nomad, you're the bully and you're the loser. Let's be real, if you're hating on somebody because they used to be unhappy and they found a new situation where they are now happy, it means you're jealous. It means you right now are unhappy and you're gonna stay unhappy because you're unwilling to make any changes. And you're hating on somebody who did make big changes in their lives because they are now happy. And you hate that they're happy because you're unhappy. So yeah, fuck you. Anyways, time to contradict myself and tell you, LBHs, it is kind of true. Now I say it's kind of true because with any population, you're gonna have a subset of bitter and cranky, angry people. And that's the same whether you stay in the US or you decide to become a digital nomad / expat. If you go into any Facebook group for expats or digital nomads, you'll always have these cranky people that are almost gatekeeping their countries. The cliche phrase that these people throw out is go back to your country. Try this out. Go to the expats in Da Nang Facebook group and ask, does anybody know where I can get a good burger in Da Nang? And there'll be a very specific demographic of person that will say, go back to your country if you want a burger. Why would you even come to Vietnam if you want a burger? Now, I'm gonna get really specific here, and this is gonna make some people mad, but 99.999% of the time, it is a retired age man. Now, don't call me ageist, because I have a ton of retired friends in Da Nang, and they're actually some of the nicest, friendliest, at peace people that I know. But I think when you reach a certain point of your life, and you've lived a great life, then now you have perspective, you have inner peace, you have empathy towards others, and you're just an amazing person. Or you look back at your life and you lived a shitty life, and now you're cranky, bitter, and you project this out to other people. I do think that there were a lot of people that were extremely angry and unhappy back home, and they thought that going to another country would solve that. And I think these people fly to the other side of the world because they're looking for an escape. But you can't escape yourself, dude. And a lot of these people are like foreigner-hating foreigners because it's almost like they're reminded about what it was like back home because a lot of the people from back home are in Vietnam now. So yeah, you're gonna have cranky people no matter where you go. But I think on average, most digital nomads are traveling for the experience and not for any other ulterior reasons. Not for picking up chicks, not for flaunting money. It's for the experience. And last but not least, digital nomads are one big happy community. So this term digital nomad has kind of turned into this like blanket term for any foreigner that's outside of their home country. But I think that most foreigners don't fit neatly into that digital nomad classification, even for myself. So just off the top of my head, when I think about foreigners in Vietnam, I think about digital nomads. They're the ones that are here for a week or 2 weeks. They're hopping all the time. The second group, I would call them slow-mads. They kind of hop every 3 to 4 months. So they're in one city or one country for 3 months. They're hopping to a new country for 3 months, new country for 3 months. The third category is a category that I would put myself in. It's people that have a home base in one city. So again, I'm spending 10, 11 months out of the year in Da Nang, Vietnam, and I hop around from here. I actually think a huge chunk of digital nomads fall into this third category. And there's a fourth category that I don't consider them digital nomads at all, but they still get bundled in. And these are the expats. They're the people that have residency here or have citizenship here, and this is actually their new home. And then of course you can break all these categories into subcategories as well. For example, for expats, there's people that have businesses here and that's why they're here. There's people that are retired, that's why they're here. But it goes on and on and on. The point that I'm trying to make is that the digital nomad community is not this monolith. When I think about the stereotypical picture of a digital nomad, I think about a guy in their 20s or 30s with a sleeveless shirt, on their laptop, on a beach in some tropical island like Bali, under a tiki hut, drinking out of a coconut, eating avocado toast and a acai bowl, and playing pickleball. Damn, now that I say that out loud, I actually fit a lot of those stereotypes. Anyways, if you're someone that's thinking about becoming a digital nomad and you think you don't fit neatly into the stereotype, you don't have to worry. There's seriously so many Westerners abroad now after COVID that no matter where you go, you're gonna be able to find a community that fits for you. Overall, I think if you've ever considered becoming a digital nomad, I would really encourage you to give it a shot. I really think you have nothing to lose and everything to gain. I know it seems like a really big leap, but I hope videos like this can show you that it's a pretty normal life overall. Going forward, I do want to make more videos like this that really go in depth of what it's like to be a digital nomad, no BS, no fluff, really giving you guys an inside look of not only what the life is like, but what the process of getting here was like. If you agree or disagree with anything that I said, make sure you leave it in the comments. If anything that I said made you mad or rubbed you the wrong way, let me know in the comments as well why. Please remember that nothing on this channel is meant for me to be dropping facts on you. Everything is meant for me to just start a discussion. Say bye to Mew, say bye to Nala, I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.